The golden hour sunset swept through the glass walls of Xerxes Isaacs' penthouse office, casting long shadows across the minimalist furniture while he studied the two faces on his monitor. He tapped a key, and the algorithm paired the faces with a 96.8% compatibility match, both strangers to him, but soon to join the exclusive ranks of Affinity's success stories. With a small smile of satisfaction, Xerxes closed the file, unaware that in less than 24 hours, his own face would appear in the system's matching queue. San Francisco, 2028. The city had become even more stratified, tech billionaires in their sleek towers, everyone else living in the increasingly expensive shadows they cast. Xerxes' company, Affinity, occupied the top floors of a gleaming skyscraper that caught the sunset from every angle. The building's glass exterior reflected the bay in fragments of blue and gold, a visual metaphor for what his company did, took fragments of human desire and arranged them into something beautiful. "Mr. Isaacs, your 4 o'clock is here," announced the disembodied voice of Aria, the office AI assistant. Xerxes straightened his tailored jacket. "Send her in." Blair Wells had changed her hair since their divorce 3 years ago. It was shorter now, falling just below her jawline, and she'd let the natural brown return after years of blonde highlights. Her eyes, though, those remained unchanged. Sharp, perceptive, the color of wet stones. "Hello, Xerxes," she said, stepping into his office with the confident stride of someone who belonged in rooms where billion-dollar decisions were made. "Blair." His voice maintained professional composure, though his pulse quickened. "I didn't expect the Times to send you for this interview." "Neither did I," she replied, setting her bag down and pulling out a sleek tablet. "But my editor thought I'd have unique insight into the man behind the algorithm." The algorithm. The very thing that had made him one of the wealthiest men in Silicon Valley, and the thing that had developed during the gradual collapse of their marriage. AffinityCore, the complex AI system that analyzed thousands of data points to match people not just on superficial compatibility, but on deep psychological alignment. It had begun as a theoretical project during his PhD, then became a startup, then an empire. Unlike the dating apps that came before it, Affinity didn't cater to the masses. Its membership fee started at $50,000 per year, with extensive psychological profiling and background checks. It had become the matchmaking service of choice for tech executives, celebrities, and the global elite. Its success rate, 89% of matches resulted in long-term relationships, made the price tag seem reasonable to those who could afford it. "Shall we begin?" Blair asked, activating her recording device. "The public is fascinated by how AffinityCore works. Care to share more than the press releases do?" Xerxes walked to the window, looking out at the Bay Bridge illuminated against the darkening sky. "The fundamental problem with relationships isn't finding someone you like. It's finding someone whose flaws align with your strengths, and vice versa." He turned back to her. Traditional dating services focus on common interests or physical attraction. AffinityCore analyzes psychological complementarity. "And how does it gather this data?" Blair asked, though they both knew she already understood the answer better than most journalists would. "Multiple sources. Direct psychological assessments, digital footprint analysis, biometric readings during controlled social situations." He paused. "The more data points, the more accurate the match." Blair nodded, making notes. "And yet you've never used the service yourself." The statement hung in the air between them. It wasn't a question, but it demanded an answer. "I designed it." "Using it would be." He searched for the right word, redundant. Blair's eyebrow arched slightly. "Or perhaps you don't trust your own creation with your heart." The interview continued for another hour, professional but charged with unspoken history. Blair asked about privacy concerns, about whether AffinityCore reinforced social bubbles among the elite, about the ethics of an algorithm that claimed to understand human emotion better than humans themselves. Xerxes parried each question with well-rehearsed answers that revealed just enough to seem transparent while protecting Affinity's proprietary technology. As she was leaving, Blair paused at the door. "One last thing, off the record. I'm writing a feature on AI ethics for next month. I'd like to interview your chief scientist, Dr. Nakamura." "I'll have my assistant contact her," Xerxes replied. "She's brilliant, but publicity shy." "Thanks." Blair hesitated. "It was interesting to see you again." After she left, Xerxes remained standing by the window, watching the city lights flicker on. He hadn't expected her presence to affect him so strongly after 3 years. Their marriage had burned hot and ended cold, two ambitious people who couldn't find a way to orbit each other without collision. "Aria, pull up the Nakamura project files," he said. Accessing Project Empathy, the AI responded. "Dr. Nakamura has made significant progress on the emotional recognition modules." Project Empathy was Affinity's next-generation technology, a quantum leap beyond the current algorithm. While Affinity Core analyzed data to predict compatibility, Project Empathy was designed to understand emotional states in real time, to learn and adapt to the changing dynamics of human relationships. "Show me the latest test results." The holographic display filled with charts and graphs. Project Empathy was moving from theory to reality faster than anticipated. If successful, it wouldn't just match people, it would guide them through the complexities of their relationships, predicting conflicts before they happened and suggesting optimal resolutions. "Also, Mr. Isaacs, you have 17 unread messages requiring your attention," Aria continued. "Including one from the board regarding tomorrow's demonstration." The demonstration. Affinity's biggest investors were coming to see Project Empathy in action. Xerxes had been so absorbed in preparation that he'd given little thought to Blair's unexpected appearance today. That night, in his penthouse overlooking the city, Xerxes found himself unable to sleep. He poured a glass of the same Cabernet Sauvignon Blair had always preferred and opened the hidden folder on his personal server, the one containing photos from their marriage. Blair laughing on a beach in Thailand. Blair asleep against his shoulder on a flight to Tokyo. Blair arguing passionately with him across their dining table about the ethics of AI development. That had been the beginning of the end. As Affinity Core had grown more sophisticated, their arguments had intensified. Blair, with her journalist skepticism, had questioned whether any algorithm should have that much influence over human emotion. Xerxes had accused her of not understanding his vision. The distance had grown, silently at first, then in explosive arguments that left them both wounded. On impulse, Xerxes accessed Affinity Core from his home terminal. The system wasn't designed for self-analysis, but he had built a backdoor for testing purposes. He input his own psychological profile, then hesitated before adding Blair's. They had both completed extensive assessments during the early development phases. The data was years old, but the core personality traits would remain largely unchanged. The algorithm whirred silently, comparing thousands of data points. After 30 seconds, a result appeared: compatibility, 92.4%. Xerxes stared at the number, a bitter laugh escaping him. Higher than most of the matches Affinity had successfully made. Higher than he expected. If they were such a perfect match, why had their marriage disintegrated? He drained his wine glass and closed the program, telling himself it was a meaningless exercise. The algorithm had been primitive then compared to its current iteration. The data was outdated. There were too many variables unaccounted for. But the number haunted him as he finally drifted off to sleep, 92.4%. The next morning, Xerxes arrived at the office earlier than usual. The demonstration for the investors was scheduled for 11 a.m., and he wanted to review the final preparations with Dr. Nakamura. Yumi Nakamura had been with Affinity since nearly the beginning. A brilliant cognitive scientist with specializations in both AI development and human psychology, she had helped transform Xerxes' theoretical framework into functional code. She was waiting in the lab, her precisely cut black hair framing a face that rarely betrayed emotion. "Everything is ready," she said without preamble. "Project Empathy's predictive models are exceeding our benchmarks by 23%. The investors will want more than statistics," Xerxes replied. "They need to see it working in a real human interaction. We have the demonstration scenario prepared. 2 actors will simulate a relationship conflict while Project Empathy analyzes their emotional states and offers intervention strategies." Xerxes nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Yumi, there's something I'd like to test before the demonstration. He hesitated. A personal query. Dr. Nakamura's expression remained neutral. I assume this relates to Blair Wells' visit yesterday. Nothing escaped her notice. Yes. I ran our profiles through the original Affinity core last night. And? 92.4% compatibility. Yumi nodded slightly. Not surprising. Your psychological profiles align in complementary patterns. But Affinity core only analyzes static data points. It doesn't account for dynamic emotional evolution. And Project Empathy does. Theoretically. It's designed to understand how emotions change over time and in response to external stimuli. She paused. Are you suggesting we run you and Ms. Wells through Project Empathy? As a controlled experiment, Xerxes said quickly. If it can accurately retrodict why a theoretically compatible match failed, it would be compelling evidence of its capabilities. Dr. Nakamura considered this. We would need fresh emotional data from both participants. And Ms. Wells would need to consent. I'll handle that, Xerxes said. How quickly can you modify today's demonstration to include this experiment? 3 hours. But Xerxes, she rarely used his first name. This is inadvisable. Mixing personal history with a product demonstration creates unpredictable variables. Sometimes unpredictable variables are the best test of a system's capabilities, he replied. Make the preparations. I'll contact Blair. Calling his ex-wife was harder than he anticipated. When she answered, her voice was guarded. Xerxes? I'm on deadline. I have a proposition for you, he said, trying to keep his tone professionally detached. Related to your AI ethics piece. He explained Project Empathy and the demonstration, carefully framing his request as a journalistic opportunity for her to get unprecedented access to cutting-edge AI technology. You want to use our failed marriage as a demonstration for your investors? Her voice held disbelief. I want to demonstrate Project Empathy's ability to analyze complex emotional dynamics. Our history provides a rich data set. There was a long pause. What exactly would this involve? A series of questions while connected to biometric sensors. Project Empathy would analyze our responses and provide insights on our relationship dynamics. And I get exclusive access to write about this. Complete access. Before anyone else. Another pause. This is professionally intriguing but personally uncomfortable. I understand. But consider the story you could write, an inside look at how AI is attempting to understand human emotion, with you as both observer and subject. Fine, she finally said. But I maintain editorial control over what I publish. Of course. After ending the call, Xerxes stood motionless for several moments. What had he just initiated? Was this truly for the demonstration, or was he seeking answers to questions that had haunted him since their divorce? The preparations moved quickly. Dr. Nakamura modified the demonstration protocol while Xerxes briefed the investors on the change of plans, positioning it as a more compelling real-world test of Project Empathy's capabilities. By 10:30, everything was ready in the main demonstration lab, a spacious room with a central seating area surrounded by holographic displays. Blair arrived precisely on time, dressed in a structured blue suit that Xerxes recognized from their last anniversary dinner. Her face betrayed nothing as Dr. Nakamura attached small sensors to her temples and wrists. These measure galvanic skin response, pupil dilation, micro-expressions, and several other physiological markers of emotional states, Dr. Nakamura explained. Project Empathy correlates these readings with linguistic patterns and contextual data. The investors filed in, 12 men and women representing some of the wealthiest venture capital firms in the world. They took their seats around the periphery of the room, digital notebooks ready to record their impressions. Ladies and gentlemen, Xerxes began, today you'll witness the next evolution in emotional intelligence technology. Project Empathy doesn't just match people based on compatibility, it understands the dynamic nature of human relationships and provides real-time analysis and guidance. He gestured to Blair. Ms. Wells and I have a unique history that makes us ideal test subjects. We were married for 5 years before divorcing 3 years ago. On paper, according to our original algorithm, we were highly compatible. Yet our relationship failed. Project Empathy will analyze why, demonstrating its superior understanding of human emotional dynamics. Blair's expression tightened slightly, but she maintained her professional composure. The investors leaned forward, intrigued by this unexpected personal element. Dr. Nakamura activated the system. Project Empathy is now online and calibrating to your baseline emotional states. We'll begin with simple questions to establish patterns. A gentle, gender-neutral voice filled the room, Project Empathy's interface. Xerxes and Blair, please describe your initial meeting. Xerxes went first, describing their meeting at a tech conference where Blair had been covering emerging AI technologies. She asked better questions than any other journalist. Questions that made me reconsider aspects of my own research. Blair's turn. He wasn't like other tech founders I'd interviewed. He was thinking about the philosophical implications of his work, not just the potential market value. The questions continued, gradually progressing from their courtship to their marriage to the beginning of their problems. The holographic displays showed real-time emotional analysis, shifting colors representing different emotional states, with connection lines between them showing areas of resonance or discord. Interesting, murmured Dr. Nakamura, studying the data. There's strong emotional alignment when discussing your early relationship and shared values, but significant divergence when discussing the company's growth period. Project Empathy's voice continued. During which period did you first notice significant relationship strain? Blair answered immediately. When Affinity secured its first major funding round. Xerxes became obsessed with perfecting the algorithm. Our conversations became technical problems to solve rather than emotional exchanges. Xerxes felt a defensive response rising. That's not accurate. I was building something revolutionary. You seem to resent the time it required. Project Empathy interrupted smoothly. I'm detecting defensive posturing from Xerxes and resignation from Blair. This appears to be a recurring pattern. Analyzing deeper psychological frameworks. The display shifted, showing a complex web of interconnected emotional responses. The investors watched in fascination as Project Empathy began to deconstruct the underlying dynamics of their failed marriage with unnerving accuracy. Your core conflict centers on differing interpretations of connection, the AI continued. Xerxes values connection as a problem to be optimized. Blair values connection as an experience to be felt. When stress increased, you both retreated to these default interpretations, creating a feedback loop of misunderstanding. The room was silent. Xerxes felt exposed, as if the AI had peeled back his skin to reveal the circuitry beneath. He glanced at Blair and saw her blinking rapidly, fighting emotion. Furthermore, Project Empathy continued, your communication patterns reveal a critical inflection point approximately 4 years ago, when discussion of having children coincided with Affinity's expansion. Analysis suggests this created an unresolved tension between personal and professional priorities. Blair's voice was tight. That's enough, I think. The demonstration has been quite thorough. But the AI wasn't finished. Based on current emotional readings, both subjects still maintain significant attachment bonds. With appropriate communication strategies, reconciliation would have a 76.8% probability of success. The investors murmured appreciatively, clearly impressed by the system's precision and insight. Dr. Nakamura was already moving to end the demonstration, but Xerxes stood transfixed by the number floating in the air between him and Blair, 76.8%. Thank you for this compelling demonstration, Dr. Nakamura said smoothly. We'll take a brief recess before discussing Project Empathy's commercial applications. The investors filed out, engaged in excited conversation. Blair immediately removed her sensors and gathered her belongings, her movements quick and precise. Blair, Xerxes said quietly. Can we talk? I think the AI did enough talking for all of us. Her voice was controlled, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. Not here. Somewhere private. She hesitated, then nodded curtly. 10 minutes. The rooftop garden. The rooftop garden had been designed as a refuge from the sterile technology below: living plants, flowing water, natural materials. As Xerxes stepped out into the space, he found Blair standing by the edge, looking out over the city. Was this just a publicity stunt? She asked without turning around. Using our marriage as a demonstration to impress your investors? No. He moved to stand beside her. I wanted answers. About us. And you needed an AI to provide them. Now she turned to face him, anger flashing in her eyes. You always did trust algorithms more than actual human emotion. That's not fair. Isn't it? You built a system to match people perfectly, but you couldn't figure out how to make our match work. Xerxes felt the familiar defensiveness rising, but something in Project Empathy's analysis made him pause and reconsider his response. You're right, he said finally. I thought I could optimize our relationship the way I optimized the algorithm. I turned our problems into equations to solve rather than experiences to navigate together. The admission hung between them, unexpected. Blair's expression softened slightly. And I expected you to intuitively understand my needs without being explicit about them. Project Empathy was right about that, too. They stood in silence for a moment, the city spread out below them, unaware of the small moment of truth unfolding above. I ran our profiles through Affinity call last night, Xerxes admitted. 92.4% compatibility. Blair gave a short laugh. And yet we failed. Maybe the algorithm wasn't wrong about our compatibility. Maybe we were wrong about how to use it. She studied his face. What are you saying, Xerxes? I'm saying that perhaps technology can identify potential, but it takes human effort to realize it. He hesitated. Project Empathy gave us a 76.8% chance of successful reconciliation. Those are better odds than most of the matches Affinity creates. Are you proposing we get back together based on statistical probability? No. He reached for her hand, surprised when she didn't pull away. I'm suggesting that we consider the possibility that our story isn't finished yet. Not because an algorithm says so, but because I've missed you. And I think you've missed me too. Blair was silent for a long moment. I have an ethical problem writing about something I'm personally involved in. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Xerxes felt a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. We could call it participatory journalism. Or a conflict of interest. But she was smiling too, just slightly. Have dinner with me tonight. No censors, no algorithms. Just us, talking. She considered this. One condition. You have to delete our profiles from all your systems. Whatever happens between us happens because we choose it, not because an AI predicted it. Deal. As they stood there, the sun broke through the clouds, warming the rooftop garden. Below them, in the demonstration room, Dr. Nakamura was explaining to the investors how Project Empathy could revolutionize relationship counseling, executive coaching, and diplomatic negotiations. The funding would be secured by the end of the day, pushing Affinity's valuation to new heights. But on the roof, Xerxes wasn't thinking about valuations or algorithms. He was thinking about the woman beside him and how all his technological brilliance had failed to recognize the simplest truth, that love wasn't a problem to solve, but a journey to experience. I should get back to the investors, he said reluctantly. Blair nodded. And I have an article to rewrite. She smiled. Dinner at 8. 8 it is. As she walked away, Xerxes made a mental note to have Arya cancel his evening meetings. Some things couldn't be delegated to an AI, no matter how sophisticated. Some things required the messy, unpredictable, glorious complexity of human connection. His algorithm had matched him with his ex-wife, but it would be his own choices that determined whether they wrote a new chapter or closed the book for good. In the end, he reflected, that was the limitation of even the most advanced AI. It could analyze patterns, predict outcomes, even understand emotions on a theoretical level. But it couldn't feel. It couldn't yearn. It couldn't forgive. Those remained uniquely human capabilities, imperfect, inconsistent, and infinitely precious. And no algorithm, however brilliant, could ever fully capture their worth.